This is Cooper with Christians with Ambition, and today I'm going to talk about the richest man who ever lived. And the richest man who ever lived is not Warren Buffett, okay? It's not Bill Gates, it's not all these people we hear today. The richest man who ever lived was King Solomon. And I'm not just speaking monetarily, I'm speaking just in general, spiritually, okay? So we're talking just a man of God who was the richest man who ever lived. And actually a book that kind of helped me in this is this one right here by Stephen Scott. Okay, this is a book called The Richest Man Who Ever Lived, King Solomon's Secrets to Success, Wealth, and Happiness. In writing these 10 financial lessons from King Solomon, I used this book as well as going through Ecclesiastes and Proverbs. Okay, so if you're ready to get some financial lessons from the richest man who ever lived, stay tuned. King Solomon, the son of David, a man after God's own heart was David, the Bible says. But King Solomon was so knowledgeable, so intelligent, had so much wisdom that people would come to him from far away to basically just hear what he had to say. Okay, this was a man who in our present time would be seen as not only the wealthiest man, but also the most intelligent man. And as we can see today, wealth does not always equal intelligence. So to have both of those things, both knowledge and wisdom, and also monetarily be wealthy, okay, this is a man that was just powerful. Okay, and every time somebody would come to him, they would bring him a gift, whether that was livestock, gold bars, okay, these material possessions. They would give to him as essentially an offering to hear what he had to say, as a gift to hear what he would have to say. And so I'm going to go through 10 financial lessons that I've learned personally from his writings in Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, and basically outlay them to you because in my opinion, the Bible offers some of the greatest financial advice anywhere. Now, the first financial lesson that King Solomon got across to me in his writing is on greed and to turn away from greed. Greed can absolutely suck you in and spit you out if you're not careful, okay? Greed is something that takes over people's lives. It infiltrates everything like a cancer and just absolutely can ruin your spiritual life, your family life, everything, okay? When you're comparing yourselves to others and saying, I wish I had what they had, things like that, you're gonna get in trouble. And so this is something that, Solomon talked about quite extensively in his writings. The first verse, such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. That's Proverbs 1:19. The next one, greed brings grief to the whole family, but those who hate bribes will live. That's Proverbs 15:27. Greedy people try to get rich quick, but don't realize they're headed for poverty. Proverbs 28:22. That verse kind of sticks out to me as Solomon is talking about the get rich quick schemes, the people who think, it's like the tortoise versus the hare, and these people are the hare trying to get something quick rather than build that proper foundation that the Bible is constantly talking about and build from there. The next one, greed causes fighting. Trusting the Lord leads to prosperity. That's Proverbs 28:25. And then income from charging high interest rates will end up in the pocket of someone who is kind to the poor. That's Proverbs 28:8. I love verses like that because it's so applicable to today, okay? High interest rates on credit cards and high interest rates on student loans and, payday loan schemes, things like that. This is talking about, those will end up in the pocket of someone who is kind to the poor. It's funny to see these verses. Okay, so obviously greed, this is something that Solomon, takes seriously and does not want you to be greedy. And it's funny, you see King Solomon, the wealthiest man who ever lived, talking about how greed can terrorize your life, can take over your life. It is not something that you want, and it's something that you want to turn away from. Him being the wealthiest man of all is saying that. That's definitely advice that I would want to heed, and I suggest you do as well. The next one, okay, diversify your life. Now, I say diversify your life. I could say diversify your investments because diversifying your investments financially is an important thing. However, I think this is talking not just about your finances, but also just diversifying things in general. The man who is, just a specialist is going to falter when it comes to other things. So the man who has all of his money in one thing is going to falter, when, that part of his life goes down. So if you're only drawing from one income source, if you're only investing in one company, things like that, you're relying solely on those things. So if you're a employee and that's your only source of income, what happens when you get fired? All of a sudden you have nothing else to pull from. So this is important, in my opinion, for income purposes and also investing purposes. The first one, invest in 7 ventures, yes, and 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. Ecclesiastes 11:2. This ties perfectly into investing in, mutual funds, or investing in things that are well diversified. That way you're not, relying on just one company, relying on just one thing to hold you afloat. The next one, cast your bread on the surface of the waters, for you will find it after many days. This one antecedes the previous one that I spoke on, but it's a little confusing at first, because you think, cast your bread on the surface of the waters. When you think that, you're thinking, okay, if I throw this out, this is just going to come back soggy and moldy, and there's really no purpose for it. But what he's talking about is Solomon was a man who was involved in exporting, importing, things like that. And so what he's saying, when he would send out grain on ships, he would send it in multiple ships. That way they weren't all in one ship, and if that ship capsized, he would be done for. So spreading it out, diversifying. Solomon knew the value of diversification, and I think we should too, based on his writings. The next one, and this is something I've talked on extensively, and actually I'll put a link in the bio below and a link somewhere up here for you to watch this video on debt, okay? And this is something I'm passionate about. I think in America today we take on way too much debt, and this is something that Solomon thinks you should reduce, okay? So if you go here, the rich rules over the poor and the borrower becomes the lender's slave. That's Proverbs 22:7. In my last video, Christians are taking on too much debt. I emphasized this verse, and I'm emphasizing it again because I think it's very important. The richest man in the world is talking about the rich ruling over the poor and the borrower becoming the lender's slave. Well, oftentimes when you become a borrower, you're becoming poor because you're simply borrowing from somebody else that you're going to have to pay back, but you're going to have to pay more back in interest. Okay, the next one. Not be a man who strikes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. If you lack the means to pay, your very bed will be snatched from under you. Okay, that's Proverbs 22:26. And what he's saying is, by borrowing from somebody, if you don't pay that back, you're up to the mercy of that person. So you become their slave. They own you and your possessions if you don't pay that back. Okay, and he's saying this is essentially somebody who's defaulted on their debt, defaulted on their loan, and somebody's taking that out from under them. Okay, that's wise words from Solomon. And I just want to make something clear here. In my study of the Bible, nowhere within the Bible can I find debt being a good thing. Okay, we talk a lot about leverage and things like that, and that being a good thing. And sometimes I think that leverage would be good, but then I go back to the Bible, and nowhere within there does it say it's a good thing. Now, does that mean it's necessarily always a bad thing? I don't think so. But again, it doesn't say anywhere that debt is a specifically good thing. Okay, number 4, advice given is only as good as the advisor. This is something I really like because I'm an advisor, and I think that I'm a stand-up advisor. But that being said, you need to be careful who you listen to. So, if you're getting personal finance advice from everybody on YouTube and just taking what they have to say, even just this channel, you need to be sure that who you're getting the advice from is somebody that you should be getting advice from. So it's somebody with wisdom and knowledge, and somebody that can back up and has expertise and can actually be helpful. And they're not just looking out for their own interests, but they're looking out for you. Okay, and so there's just a ton of verses on this. I absolutely love it. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. That's Proverbs 15:22. Listen to advice and accept instruction, that you may gain wisdom in the future. Many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. Proverbs 19:20-21. When there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. Proverbs 11:14. So having godly men around you that can advise you, that can help you, that can give you wisdom, that can build you up when you're down, These are things that are important, and Solomon recognized those. Last verse I'll read. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. That's Proverbs 12:15. Okay, I'm going to read that again because I just love it. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes. So we think that things are okay in our own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. So you listen to a wise man like Solomon, listen to people that could tell him things, listen to his father David, who was a man after God's own heart, so he could learn things. And those are things we need to be aware of. Okay, the fifth one, take hold of opportunities. Okay, God opens doors, no questions, but you've got to be the person that actually walks through. I'm actually reading a book right now called Just Do Something by Kevin DeYoung. I would highly suggest it. I'll put a link in the bio below for those that want to take a look at it. It's an awesome book that talks about, God has called us to do things. God calls us to do things. God opens doors for us. God closes doors for us. But ultimately, it's upon us to go through those doors, okay? If God, there's a satirical news article that I saw one time where it was like, man 82 is still waiting at home, waiting for God to tell him what to do. He's just sat there for his whole life. That's kind of the picture we get of people who don't actually seek God's will. They don't pursue things. They don't go out and do things. They just sit there and wait for an answer. Now, there's certainly a time to sit and be patient and wait, but in the same sense, we need to be ambitious about God's goals, okay? And we need to pursue what God has for us, and we need to do and be the hands and feet of Jesus. Okay, and so the verse here, now you are a body of Christ and individually members of it. So 1 Corinthians 12:27, that talks about being the hands and feet of Christ. Okay, we are the body of Christ. Okay, he who watches the wind will not sow, and he who looks at the clouds will not reap. Ecclesiastes 11:4. That's something I sent out about a week ago to some people I've got a small group that I lead, and something I sent out to the small group, some of the men in the small group, just to encourage them. I think that's perfectly illustrates taking hold of opportunities. He who watches the wind will not sow. So if you're a farmer and you're just sitting back and watching and not planting, you're not going to sow. And he who looks at the clouds will not reap. So him who is just dreaming all day and not actually out there working, you're not going to reap, okay? And then the final one, just as you do not know the path of the wind and how bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of God who makes all things. That's Ecclesiastes 11:5. Okay, we do not know the activity of God, okay? We don't know everything that is going on, but we do know what we're called to, and we do know how we are supposed to live, and that's to live as Christ and live with Christ in us and to pursue the things of Christ. Okay, number 6. Hard work is important. I just want to say this real quick. This is a long video. If it's too long for you, feel free to pause it and come back. But I think these are important, and I think sometimes I like talking about these in longer detail rather than just the short videos, because there's some true things that need to be illustrated here. But number 6, as I said, is hard work is important, and this is something that certainly King Solomon takes very seriously. We definitely need rest, okay? But we also need to work hard, okay? Not just for our family, not just for our friends, but also for God, okay? And I've got so many verses here. I'll just read a few of them. The first one, take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. Learn from their ways and become wise. Though they have no prince or governor or ruler to make them work, they labor hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. Proverbs 6:6-8. A little extra sleep, and this is a really popular verse. A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. Proverbs 6:10-11. Okay, this is the wealthiest man of all time telling you not to be lazy. The next one, lazy people are soon poor, hard workers get rich. Proverbs 10:4. If that verse doesn't illustrate it, I don't know what does. Lazy people are soon poor, hard workers get rich. Okay, the seventh one, hard work is not enough. Okay, so we talk about, working harder, but we also need to work smart, okay? We can't just be out there, grinding all day without using our minds, okay? We need to work smart, and so hard work is not enough is number 7. And this is a verse in Ecclesiastes 10:10. If the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must use more strength, but wisdom helps one to succeed, okay? So this is talking about not just being a hard worker, but using your intelligence. If the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, so if one is just beating all day with this axe, you're not going to be able to get there as quick. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, if you give me 4 hours to chop wood, I'm going to spend 3 of them sharpening the axe. Okay, so this is talking about working smarter, not just harder. The 8th point financial lesson that we can learn from Solomon is to be a giver. Okay, tithe is certainly important, but so is giving above and beyond tithe. Okay, do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it's in your power to help them. That's Proverbs 3:27. Give freely and become more wealthy. Be stingy and lose everything. That's Proverbs 11:24. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. Proverbs 11:25. This is talking about giving, and by giving you are getting something back. Okay, and we don't do it just to give things back, but that's something that's promised to us. So we need to give and help others. It's a sin to belittle one's neighbors. Blessed are those who help the poor. Proverbs 14:21. I have so many verses on this. I mean, there's so much just wisdom and great lessons, not just financially, but just in general to learn from Solomon and his writings in Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. The last verse I'll read on this. Whoever gives to the poor will lack nothing, but those who close their eyes to poverty will be cursed. Proverbs 28:7. This one hit me hard because in America, at least here in the Midwest, I live in the Bible Belt, I don't see poverty as much as maybe I would if I was living in a bigger city or in a third world country. So sometimes I can turn my eye to it and think that it's not a problem, but it is a problem. It's a problem not just in America. I mean, there is poverty in America, but it's a problem elsewhere in other countries, and we need to be conscious of that, and we need to help those people. Number 9, never stop learning. Okay, if you're watching this, then this is probably something that you take heed of because you're trying to increase your knowledge and you're trying to learn. Okay, you're trying to learn the wisdom of the Bible and things of that nature. And this is something that the wealthiest man in the world of all time is certainly believed and talked about often. There's actually a quote that I like of Warren Buffett's right-hand man, Charlie Munger. This is just a quote I like. Isn't a Bible verse, obviously, but it says, spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up. Discharge your duties faithfully and well. Step by step you get ahead, but not necessarily in fast spurts. But you build discipline by preparing for fast spurts. Slug it out 1 inch at a time, day by day, and at the end of the day, if you live long enough, most people get what they deserve. Okay, so this is a very wealthy man in today's age talking about the importance of, just getting in the grind and doing it day after day and learning, learning every day. And so these are some verses that Solomon gets across to us in Proverbs. Cry out for insight and ask for understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasures. That's Proverbs 2:3-4. Choose my instruction rather than silver, and knowledge rather than pure gold, for wisdom is far more valuable than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with it. That's Proverbs 8:10-11. And the last one, wise words are more valuable than much gold and many rubies. Proverbs 20:15. So this is a man who had everything, and he's saying that he would rather have wisdom and knowledge than the many gold bars and the rubies and just the stacks of silver that he had. Okay, and I think that's perfect for us to be understanding of, is that we don't just seek gold, and we don't just seek money, and we don't just seek power. What we seek is knowledge and wisdom from God, and through that He's going to bless us with what we need. In some cases it will be more than others, but that's not something that we're worried about. The last one, fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One results in good judgment. Proverbs 9-10. Okay, and then the last one, and this is something I've talked about, ambition, and I've talked about working hard and working smart and all these things, but we need to remember that rest is also important. So we can work as hard as we want, but in the end, if we're just constantly working and not taking any time back to, thank the Lord for His blessings and, to rest, then we're not going to be able to push again, okay? We can't have this constant intensity. We need to have consistency, okay? And just like you would training for a marathon, you don't just go out, every single day, all day running. You go and then you rest. You run and then you rest, okay? So we need that in our lives. And this is in Ecclesiastes 3:3. A time to kill and a time to heal. Let me reread that. A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up. That's Ecclesiastes 3:3. So this is Solomon essentially saying there's a time for all things, okay? So it's not always about, being the go-getter, getting things done. We also need to remember that we're called to rest as well. And so, as you can see, King Solomon was a great man of wealth, okay? And for you type A personalities like myself, we always want to pursue and we always want to be ambitious. And that's kind of what this is about is, we can be ambitious, but we can be ambitious for God and not for our own lives, okay? But we also need to remember that we need to take time to set back and to relax with our families and to just enjoy life. And that's something that I struggle with, and it's something that I think I need to add more into my life. And it's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from reading Solomon's words and his wisdom in Ecclesiastes and Proverbs. So if you like this video, I'd appreciate you checking out more of them. Feel free to subscribe, comment, like, share. Let me know some other things that you'd like to hear. And I look forward to doing more of these. Peace.